Hi, let's complete chapter 6, The Secret Garden. What do you mean you know I am going to die? Everybody says I'm going to die. I don't believe it, said Mary in her most disagreeable voice. You just say that to make people feel sorry for you. You're too horrid to die. Colin forgot about his painful back and sat up in bed. Get out of the room at once, he shouted and threw a book at her. So, did Mary believe that Colin is going to die? No, she didn't. What was Colin's reaction when Mary defended Deacon? He said, "Get out of the room at once," he shouted and threw a book at her. "I am going," Mary shouted in reply, "and I want to come back." The door banged shut behind her. When she reached her own room, she had decided never to tell him her great secret. About the secret garden, of course. He can stay in his room and die if he wants, she thought. She speaks with herself. But soon she began to remember how ill he had been, and how frightened he was, frightened that one day his back would become as crooked as his father's. Perhaps I will go back and see him tomorrow. That night she was woken by the most terrible screams that she had ever heard. Servants were opening and shutting doors and running about. "It's Colin," thought Mary. "He will go on screaming until he makes himself really ill. How selfish he is. Somebody should stop him." Just then, Martha ran into the room. "We don't know," underline please, "we don't know what to do," she cried. "He likes you, miss. Come and see if you can make him calmer, please." Again, underline we don't know what to do, she cried. "He likes you, miss. Come and see if you can make him calmer, please." So, who speaks here? Yes, Martha. To whom? To Mary. And she speaks about what? Who? Yes, she speaks about Colin. "Well, I am very cross with him," said Mary, and jumped out of bed. "I am going to stop him." "That's right," said Martha. He needs someone like you to argue with. It will give him something new to think about." Mary ran into Colin's room, right up to his bed. "Stop screaming," she shouted furiously. "Stop at once." Okay, turn over the page 44. "I hate you. Everybody hates you. You will die if you go on screaming like this. And I hope you will." The screams stopped immediately. This was the first time that anyone had spoken so angrily to Colin. And he was shocked, but he went on crying quietly to himself. "My back is becoming crooked. I can feel it. I know I am going to die." Large tears ran down his face. He was crying. "Don't be stupid," cried Mary. "There is nothing the matter with your horrid back. Martha, come here and help me look at his back." Martha and Mrs. Medlock were standing at the door, staring at Mary, their mouths half open. They both looked very frightened. Martha came forward to help, and Miss Mary looked carefully at Colin's thin white back, up and down. Her face was serious and angry at the same time. The room was very quiet. How was Mary when she looked at Colin's back? She looked carefully at Colin's thin white back, up and down. Her face was serious and angry at the same time. "There is nothing wrong with your back," she said at last. "Nothing at all. It's as straight as mine." So, was Colin's back crooked? No, it wasn't. Only Colin knew how important those crossly spoken childish words were. All his life, he had been afraid to ask about his back, and his terrible fear had made him ill. Now, an angry little girl told him his back was straight, and he believed her. He was no longer afraid. They were both calmer now. He said softly, I think, I am almost sure, I will live if we can go out in the garden together. So again, underline please, I think, I am almost sure, I will live if we can go out in the garden together. Who said this? Colin. To whom? To Mary. Sometimes I am very tired now. Will you stay with me until I go to sleep? The servant went out very quietly. I'll tell you all about the secret garden, whispered Mary. I think it's full of roses and beautiful flowers. Birds like making their nests there because it's so quiet and safe, and perhaps our Robin, but Colin was already asleep. The next day, Mary met Deacon as usual in the secret garden. Okay, turn over the page 45. The next day, Mary met Deacon as usual in the secret garden and told him about Colin. Mary loved Deacon's Yorkshire dialect and was trying to learn it herself. She spoke a little now. We mun get poor Colin out here in the sunshine, and we mun not lose no time about it. Deacon laughed. Well done, I didn't know you could speak Yorkshire. You are right, we must bring Colin to the garden as soon as we can. So that afternoon she went to see Colin. I'm sorry, I said I had sent Deacon away. I would send Deacon away. He said, I hated you when you said he was wonderful. Well, he's a funny boy, but he understands wild animals but better than anyone. Suddenly Mary knew that this was the right moment to tell him. Colin, this is important. Can you keep a secret? Yes, yes, he whispered excitedly. What is it? We have found the door into the secret garden. Oh, Mary, will I live long enough to see it? Of course you will. Don't be stupid, said Mary crossly, but it was a very natural thing to say, and they both laughed. Colin told Mrs. Medlock and the doctor that he wanted to go out in his wheelchair. At first, the doctor was worried the boy would get too tired, but when he heard that Deacon would push the wheelchair, he agreed. Deacon is a sensible boy, he told Colin, but don't forget, I have told you, I want to forget that I am ill. Underline this quotation. I have told you, I want to forget that I am ill, said Colin. Don't you understand? It's because my cousin makes me forget that I feel better when I am with her. So we have finished now chapter 6. Let's practice this part. Okay, quotation. We don't know what to do. He likes you, miss. Come and see if you can make him calmer, please. Who said this? Martha. To whom? Mary. Who are they speaking about? They are speaking about Colin. And here there is another quotation. I think, I am almost sure I will live if we can go out in the garden together sometimes. I'm very tired now. Will you stay with me until I go to sleep? Who said this? Colin. To whom? Mary. Why was the speaker very tired? Because he was screaming. Yes, and this quotation, I have told you, I wanted to forget that I am ill. Who said this? Yes, Colin. To whom? Dr. Craven. Was Colin really ill? No, he wasn't. And now we have finished chapter 6, The Secret Garden.